Hi, everybody. David Noor. Want to welcome you back to another episode of The Inner Circle. This is episode 5, where I'm going to talk about the rules of engagement. Once you're in someone's inner circle, as you can imagine and appreciate, there are rules of engagement of what to do, what not to do, how to kind of think about adding the greatest amount of value to not just the person you're most trying to help, but other members of this community as well. If you're new to the Inner Circle live stream or podcast, we're live every Tuesday at noon Eastern, where I share a glimpse into my next book by this title. At some point, many of you have asked, how do I write? It typically takes me about 3-4 years to write a book. And at some point, you've read enough, you've talked enough, you've thought enough about an idea where you feel like you have something to say. And this live stream or podcast is my way of really coalescing my thinking, my frameworks, my ideas around a topic. So I've been thinking about an inner circle for a number of years, and I thought new year, new opportunity to get this idea off the ground and get rolling on writing the next one. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to the previous ones, we live streamed this on LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. If you also go to avneer.com/podcast, that's where we host all the previous episodes that you can listen to. I would encourage you, these often build on each other. So I would encourage you to go back and listen to them. So episode 1, I've got my notes here next to me. I defined what an inner circle is. And for those of you that, again, maybe new or haven't heard of it before, I define an inner circle as a curated group of high-value relationships that inspire, that challenge, that elevate, and amplify. Those 4 things, let me say it again. Inspire. Motivation is intrinsic. It has to come from within you. What an inner circle can do is inspire. They can challenge your assumptions, assertions. They can elevate your thinking, your perspective, your position, your access. And they can amplify, what are they doing? Your personal and professional growth. Personal and professional growth. The day you stop learning and growing is the day you become complacent. And when you become complacent, you're no longer valuable to your biggest asset, which is your portfolio of relationships. So they do that for your personal and professional growth. How? Through mutual trust, measurable collaboration, and a shared success. So that is the definition of inner circle, a curated group of high-value relationships that inspire, challenge, elevate, and amplify your personal and professional growth through mutual trust, measurable collaboration, and shared success. That was the entire episode 1. In episode 2, I gave you the 10 attributes of an inner circle, almost like a scorecard. So if you're building one, here are the attributes you should think about. Here are the attributes that should be important to you. And as you can imagine, it starts with and ends with demonstrated equity, felt trust. Trust can't just be talked about. It has to be felt. Episode 3 was 10 steps to creating one. If you want to create your own inner circle, here are the steps. I'm, in essence, giving you the recipe on how do you create an inner circle that's intentional, that's strategic, that's a quantifiable investment of your time, effort, and resources. Episode 4 was the 5 best practices in becoming a member of someone's inner circle. So if it's, again, that servant leadership just can't be talked about. It's got to be a heart of serving, of heart of giving to others above self. So I talked a lot about some best practices in how do you build trust through consistency? How do you foster authentic connections? So in this episode, I want to talk about rules of engagement. And this is really important of if you're in someone's inner circle, how do you behave? These are not skills. This is not knowledge. This is all behavioral. And as you know about behaviors, it's never a switch. It's always a dial. So what do you need to dial up? What do you need to dial back? So let me just go down the list and let's just kind of talk through. So number 1, you have to maintain unequivocal, absolute trust. Trust is not a George Foreman grill of set it and forget it. Trust has to be maintained. Trust has to be nurtured. Trust has to be unquestionable. The minute I question your integrity, I question your trust, I question whether if I share a piece of information with you, is it going to end up on the front page of the local newspaper? that's the day we can no longer talk. I'm no longer willing to share that confidential information with you. So you have to protect the confidentiality of a conversation, of sensitive information, of this is prudent judgment at all costs. You got to be honest. You got to be transparent in every interaction. What I'm always fascinated, let me just give you an example. A lot of times, executive assistants of senior executives are privy to some unbelievably confidential information. Think of a mergers and acquisition event. Think of a hiring of a high-profile leader. Think of firing of a high-profile leader. A lot of times, these assistants know what's going to happen, know what that executive's thinking before anybody else does. The best ones I've ever met practice unbelievable judgment, practice unbelievable discretion. I'm amazed of how the good Lord gave all of us discretion, and yet how few people actually use it. So number one rule of engagement in anybody's inner circle is this absolute trust. It cannot be questioned. It cannot be doubted. You cannot leave someone with fear or uncertainty of, can I trust Steve or Susan or Beth about, can I share this confidential information with them? And as soon as there's a leak, as soon as that information is blurred out, you start to really question, is that the right person? So that maintaining absolute trust has to be the foundation. This is one of those non-negotiables. And it cannot be just talked about. It has to be felt by not just the individual at the center that the inner circle supports, but also other members of that inner circle. Number two, you have to prioritize mutual value. So if you think about it, the reason that inner circle's there, you heard the definition, is to challenge those assumptions and assertions, is to amplify their position. It is to really help accelerate their personal professional growth. So are you continuously seeking ways to support that individual? And are you contributing to the other person's success materially? Don't tell me respectfully, you just send an email, right? Can you make warm introductions? Can you remove obstacles out of the way? Do you understand what they're strategically are focused on? If you don't, you're shooting darts in the blind, right? With the blindfolders on or in the pitch dark. Because if you're not adding value, material value to that person at the center, why are you in that inner circle, right? I'm reminded of, and please don't misconstrue this comment. Many of us have contributed to nonprofit boards. You know the two types of people on every nonprofit board? The workhorses and the show horses. The workhorses get things done. The show horses use it as a badge of honor. Do you know I'm on the board of so-and-so? That's great. When was the last time you contributed anything in a meaningful way? How often do you show up to board meetings? How well do you know the other board members? So there's a lot of talk, and yeah, I'm on this list and I'm on that committee, and where rubber meets the road, how are you creating impact? How is that board? How is that organization better off because you're on that board? So again, that's a really good example of, are you prioritizing mutual value? Anytime you get into a one-sided dynamic where that other person feels like they're giving more or they're getting gypped because they're not getting as much back, it's going to create an imbalance. And you've heard me say this, relationships go bad with misaligned expectations. So if the expectation is you're going to ensure reciprocity in effort and in value creation, are you intentional about it? Again, I'm not trying to tell you to keep a scorecard, but we all know it when we feel like we're a second-class citizen, or we all know it when you've heard me talk about relationship givers, takers, and investors. If you're not investing in that relationship, if it doesn't feel like it's reciprocal, somebody's going to feel jaded. Somebody's going to feel like that's just not a good use of my time, or I'm not getting a lot of value out of this. I recently had a conversation with an executive, and I'm trying to drive home. Your biggest asset, your biggest enemy is your time. It's the bandwidth we all have. I've been looking for the 25th hour of the week and the 8th day of the week for a while. I can't find it, right? So you have to be selfish about what's the best use of that time for me to create the biggest impact. So number one, maintain absolute trust. Number two, prioritize that mutual value. They have to be on top of mind. There have to be someone that You proactively, unsolicited, think about, how do I create value? Number 3, you have to be present. You have to be present. You have to be reliable. I have to be able to count on you. I got to tell you, full disclosure, my favorite phrase, and when somebody says, I got it, because what that tells me is they get me, they get the outcome we're after, and they're very focused on creating real impact and value from that work. So when they say, I've got it, they're going to take it, they're going to run with it, it's going to get done. So you have to show up when you're needed. You have to follow through, which is a process, versus follow up, which is a transaction, on any commitments that you make without reminders. Think about it a second. Nobody's got time to follow up on follow up. I want to ask you something once, and I want you to have that professionalism and that commitment to this inner circle that if I ask it, it gets done. And I don't have to keep pestering you of, hey, would you please make that introduction? Would you please send that email? Would you please open that door? Again, that inner circle, the person at the center who's built that inner circle wants and needs you to level them up, to bolster their success. And again, it's got to be mutually valuable, but that inner circle is sacred. That's a very high valued real estate. There's only so many seats at that table. So you have to show up when needed and follow through on commitments without reminders, without me having to pester you of, would you please do that? And by the way, we're all busy. So when somebody says I'm too busy, you know what I hear? It's not a priority. And if that ask is not a priority, that relationship isn't a priority. And a lot of people are not going to want to say it, right? But their behavior is going to show it when they don't start returning calls and emails because they don't see value. Along the same lines, you got to be available for advice, for support, for collaboration, even during challenging or difficult times. I was on a call 10 o'clock last night, at 10:30 last night with a coaching client. He's got a board meeting today and he wanted to talk about a challenge that he's got coming up. Those are the things that you got to be available for. You also have heard me say this. I've got a love-hate relationship with these devices that we all have because they're incredibly powerful in our communication, but they can also send an unintended signal that whoever you're interacting with is just not important. Right? When I'm at a group meeting and this thing is either sitting on the table or you know how now they ping and ding and they also do it on our phone, on our, wearable watches, and it's distracting. And it tells everybody around you that for whatever reason, they're not important or this conversation isn't important or it's not valuable. So when I say be present, that damn thing can wait. Be present, be in the moment, be here. Now, I know some people take notes on these things and so on and so forth. I'm old school. Get a piece of paper and a notebook. And if it's important enough, capture it there. But I typically put my phone in my back pocket or my coat pocket. I put distractions away so I can be present in that moment, in that conversation. Number 4, communicate proactively. By the way, if you've just joined us late, I'm talking about the rules of engagement for being in someone's inner circle. 1 was maintain absolute trust. 2 was prioritize mutual value. 3, I'm looking at my notes, be present and reliable. Like I've got to count on you without following up on follow-up. 4, communicate proactively. I don't know about you. What I've experienced is when there's lack of information, people make things up, right? Did I tell you our company's going out of business? Wait, where'd that come from? I just haven't seen any updates lately. So when there's lack of information, people make things up. So ideal if you share updates, share insights, share relevant opportunities that align with their goals. So don't make me pull it out of you. Proactively schedule cadence, touch cadences. We've built that into Avenir, touch cadence. Proactively share insights. One of my board members, Eric, a fantastic guy, we had dinner last night. He emails me on a regular basis, saw this article, thought it might be of value to you. Bob, and is another good board member, an investor in Avenir, calls me on a regular basis. I just had lunch with so-and-so, or I met someone that I think you should get to know. So be intentional, be proactive, updates, insights, relevant opportunities. You also have to, listen, if you don't have misunderstandings in your communication or conflicts, you're not human. What you cannot do is let those things fester. So you want to address misunderstandings or conflicts promptly, respectfully, You got to uncover them. Otherwise, they become a volcano. And again, I'm sure it doesn't happen to you, but have you ever seen somebody blow up at somebody that has nothing to do with whatever the issue is? That's a trigger. That's a built-up volcano from some other event. That inner circle can't afford volcanoes. So you have to be intentional about, listen, Sam, I think you and I were, we didn't quite see eye to eye in that last, call or visit. I want to make sure I clear the air. I want to make sure if I misspoke, by the way, I'm a big believer of take the high road. If I misspoke, let me apologize. Or if I misunderstood something you said, that's my bad. Let's clear the air. So conflicts are part of human nature. It's part of every communication, particularly in that inner circle. So you need to clear it so it doesn't fester. It doesn't become, your mother-in-law and my cousin twice removed. And right, don't do that. Address them proactively. Address them more intentionally. 5, respect boundaries and time. I told you earlier, everybody's biggest asset and enemy is their time. So when you're mindful of their priorities and their schedule, and you ensure that every interaction is intentional, it's purposeful, it's meaningful, you do not want to call another inner circle member and say, hey, that's going to be a very short conversation. So be intentional about those interactions. I've always said in every interaction, you have one of two opportunities. You're going to enhance it or you're going to dilute it. So if you enhance it, what are you doing? How are you doing that? It's often preparation. It's often making sure I'm aligned with the outcomes and the goals that the other person is after. If you dilute it, you didn't make enough time to do your homework and show up prepared for that next visit. So avoid overstepping or demanding more than the relationship allows. Sociologists tell us when we meet somebody else, when we interact with somebody else, we give a little, they take, they judge, they give a little, we take, we judge, we give a little. This natural exchange. Too much, too fast, and most people are going to be like, whoa, 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 dude, we just met. Too little, and they're going to think you're a snob or you're cold or you're distant, right? Or you're hiding something. So you got to get in the right rhythm with the people you're interacting with. Have you ever met this? I'm not pointing this at any of my friends, but have you ever met people that are long-winded? You ask them one question and the answer is 20 minutes. Dude, nobody needs any of that. So create those natural exchanges of ideas and perspectives. And I promise you, if they want to know more, they'll ask more. So don't overstep. Don't demand more than the relationship. I just met you and you want me to get you in the governor's office? I don't know you. Not sure I like you. Definitely don't trust you yet. So don't ask more than what the relationship naturally is able to do. That rhythm, I believe, comes with seasoning. Young professionals haven't figured that out yet. And old timers kind of have lost touch with, so they know better, right? And they still kind of ask more than they invest. I want you to think about givers, takers, and investors in every relationship. The best ones or the most astute ones are investors. So make sure you're not overstepping or demanding more than the relationship allows. Again, if you just joined us, we're covering the rules of engagement within that inner circle. 1, maintain absolute trust. 2, prioritize mutual value. 3, be present and reliable. I don't want to have to follow up on follow-up. Communicate proactively is number 4. 5, respect the relational boundaries and time. 6, provide constructive feed forward. Let me say it again. Provide constructive feed forward. You got to offer honest, thoughtful input that fosters growth and improvement. Couple of pro tips for you. I've always learned to ask for permission before you provide that constructive feed forward. Are you open to coaching? Would you like some coaching? Would some coaching be useful to you? And most people, if they're astute, if they're professional, if they're lifelong learners, they're going to say absolutely. That's when you share, right, tidbits. You share actionable. You share some things for them to think about. So if it's honest, you don't sugarcoat it. Nobody needs the fluff. Kind of be straightforward. Be kind of candid. but you want to make sure it's thoughtful. And that thoughtful input ideally helps them learn and grow and become better because they're in a relationship with you and they improve. Why do I call it feed forward? Well, number one, I can't take credit for it. It comes from Marshall Goldsmith, arguably one of the most successful executive coaches in the world. And the analogy I keep thinking about is if you think about the rear view mirror of your car, it's smaller than your windshield. Feedback is you looking backwards. I can't do anything about something that happened last week or last month. Feed forward is the windshield. How can I apply this input to improve avoiding that pothole that I'm headed for, right? So if you deliver feed forward in a supportive, solution oriented, better version of you manner, it tends to resonate a lot more effectively, a lot more impactfully than could have, should have, would have. So feed forward helps people think about the best version of themselves. Tom, you were great in that meeting. I'm not sure the way you showed up in that scenario is really the leader you want to be perceived as. Is that really the leadership brand you want for yourself? Is that really how you want other people who are in that room to describe you in rooms you're not in? That's an example of feed forward, right? That Tom can do something about. That is constructive, that is positive, that is thoughtful, that fosters, ideally, his personal and professional growth and improves who Tom is, right? 30-year-old, sharp, right? Well-educated, it just needs more seasoning, needs more of that executive presence, believes that his intellectual horsepower will carry the day. And often that's the case. But I've always believed EQ is greater value than IQ. You could be brilliant, but if you can't connect to people, if you can't engage with people, that nobody's going to see that brilliance. So when you coach Tom to become the best version of his future self, his future leadership potential, most astute people are going to take that, internalize it, and really working on how they show up, how they improve. Number 7, celebrate and support milestones. You know how difficult it is for most leaders. The higher you go, the lonelier the job gets, right? So I'm convinced more than ever we need fewer yes people around us. Yep. No, that's a great idea until you take the company off a cliff, right? Until you lose $10 million or $100 million on that deal that you should have never done. So we need cheerleaders in our lives. We need people that acknowledge and cheer for our personal and professional achievements. Tell me who doesn't want a tap on the shoulder or, hey, great job on that. You were awesome. I'm grateful for just your friendship and your support and your ideas and your perspectives. And all of that refills our cup of all the headwind and the battles we fight on a daily basis, right? All that drains us. Have you had end of the day where you just feel like I should have never gotten out of bed? We all have those days. And yet people who pour that love and support and that cheerleading into us bolster us up and really allow us to come back the next day and tackle all those headwinds all over again. So when you acknowledge and you cheer for their personal and professional achievement, you bolster their success. You bolster their learning and growth. You also want to be genuinely happy for their success. And this is key. Without jealousy, without competition. This isn't, have you met people that have to do that one-upmanship? Oh yeah, you did that? Well, I did this that was bigger. Or, oh, you know that guy? I know that guy who's bigger, right? Don't do that, right? Don't do that. Be genuinely happy. Be gracious. Be incredibly supportive without feeling like I have to outcompete them. So let them enjoy that moment. And I'm so glad for you. I'm so excited for you. You rocked that one. You were fantastic in that meeting. That's what people that constantly get beat up by market, by competitors, by lack of resources, whatever it is, desperately need is that you're going to chuckle. Some of you know my kids are grown. And when they were little, we used to hike. We love hiking. And 45 minutes north of where we live in Atlanta, North Georgia mountains. and there's this beautiful waterfall area. And as you can imagine, you got to hike up to kind of get to this waterfall. And it's just stunning once you get there. But when they were little, I used to get behind them and say, "Daddy power." And I would, support their back and help push them up the hill. And now that I'm older, I'm like, okay, where the children power? Where's the support behind the old dude? Right? And we all need that. I want you to think of that person. I want you to think of standing behind them and supporting them up that hill, because that hill is the grind. That hill is being an operator. That hill is capturing the next milestone that they're after. So when you celebrate and support their milestone, you evoke this euphoric reception in their minds, in their hearts, and they're happy to be around you. Conversely, if you suck the life out of me, if you suck the energy out of me, respectfully, I just don't want to be around you. I don't want to spend time with you. So make sure you are that celebratory and supportive asset. 8, adapt to their evolving needs. One of the attributes that I've researched around inner circle is the needs of those individuals evolve, right? As their business or situation or circumstance or their growth trajectory changes, you want to make sure you stay attuned to their changing goals, to their challenges, to their preferences, to their opportunities, right? So you doing me a favor of something that is no longer a priority, it's still nice. I still appreciate it greatly, but it's not nearly as impactful if you had asked me or if you'd wanted to know what those priorities were. What are the things that I really care about? And for most of us, our priorities change, especially if you're in a leadership position or especially if you're in charge of a big initiative. So make sure you adjust your contribution and engagement that remains aligned with their journey. We've talked about their journey from now to next. Here's where they are today. Here's what you're trying to get to. Here's the major milestones that's in their way. How do you make sure your engagement, your contribution, the way you show up, what you do, how you do it, helps support them in alignment with not just where they are, but where they're going and why that journey is important to them? So that's all about you adapting to their evolving needs. Number 9, foster long-term commitment. Relationships are not, or certainly shouldn't be, transactional. The best relationships, the most strategic relationships, the most impactful relationships are transformational. So if you treat the relationship as a long-term partnership that requires consistent feeding and care and nurturing and sustaining over the long term, that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get deep, meaningful, impactful connections, and you get those because you never neglect them. You get those because you never avoid maintaining them or nurturing them or sustaining them. So do not be penny wise and pound foolish. You've heard that expression. Do not. This is one of my favorite Norisms, right? If you haven't heard this one, I'm a big fan of this one. You ready? You may want to write this one down. This might be really useful to you. Do not become permanently stupid because you're temporarily upset. Let me say it again. Do not become permanently stupid because you're temporarily upset. When you take the long-term view of any relationship, you'll let go of the minor things. You'll let things roll off your shoulder. You'll forget what someone said because they were upset about something else. Take that long-term view. Take that long tail view of the relationship. Think of the relationship 10, 20 years from now, not next week and next month. Inner circles are long-term investments on both sides. So really avoid taking the connection for granted. Don't neglect its maintenance. That's how you foster long-term commitment. Think of owning a home, right? If you walk around, you see a crack, you wouldn't ignore it for long. Let's figure out why it's settling. Let's figure out what can we do about it. Because if you don't, think about it a second. Water starts seeping in, and now the crack gets bigger, and now I've got mold and mildew, and now it's going to have to be ripped up and replaced. Now there's much deeper damage, much greater damage than if I had repaired that one crack months, if not years ago. So think of that relationship as a long-term investment, a home that if the roof is leaking, you got to seal it. You got to repair it, right? If the windows are old or the seals of the windows are not performing, it's going to be a cold winter and a pretty expensive summer air conditioning bill. But enough about Atlanta, right? So my point is, you get it. You want to invest in the relationship in the long term. 10, last but not least, you want to uplift the inner circle. You want to encourage outcome-based collaboration. You want to encourage meaningful connections with their networks when appropriate. I got to tell you, and maybe some of this is natural from being from the Middle East, I love putting great people together because you never know when, right, that magic sparks. You never know when two people know each other, two people think of an opportunity, maybe not this week, next month, or next year, but something happens and they'll remember where they met and how they met. So if you act as a positive influence that enhances the group's collective value, you're going to get more, you're going to become more sought after. You're going to become more valuable. You're going to become not just known for your technical skills. That's unfortunately what a lot of people heavily rely on. I'm a great lawyer. I'm a great accountant. I'm the best damn engineer there ever was. Good for you. Those are all table stakes. So if you've heard me ever talk about your personal brand, build a preference for your technical skills, build an insistence for the way you engage, the way you influence, the way you create incredible connections with people. Have you ever met leaders who have people that work for them that will go through walls for them? I'm in awe of amazing military leaders, not just because the enlisted or the officers have to, but because they love this guy or this leader, and they will go through walls for them, right? So are you one of those servant leaders that people heavily rely on? Because that's what an inner circle needs. So just a quick recap. If you joined us late, this is episode 5 of the Inner Circle live stream podcast. I've been talking about rules of engagement for being in someone's inner circle. Number 1, maintain absolute trust. 2, prioritize mutual value. 3, be present and reliable. 4, communicate proactively. 5, respect boundaries, relational boundaries, and of course their time. 6, provide constructive feed forward. Feedback is the rear view mirror. I want to look through the windshield. 7, celebrate and support milestones without jealousy, without competition, without one-upmanship. 8, adapt to their evolving needs. Their needs are going to evolve. Their aspirations are going to evolve in their personal, professional growth. 9, foster the long-term relational commitment. Relationships should be transformational, not transactional. 10, uplift the inner circle. Be that force. Be that positive energy. Be the person that others want to be around. As I consistently do, recap the definition of an inner circle: a curated group of high-valued relationships that inspire, challenge, elevate, amplify. 4 things: inspire, challenge, elevate, amplify your personal and professional growth through mutual trust, measurable collaboration, and shared success. I hope this is a truncated session. I hope this was useful to you. We have some great guests coming up. Cheryl Cook, former senior executive at Dell, is going to be one of my upcoming guests. General Tom Bostic, former chief of Army Corps of Engineers, one of my future guests. We've got Eric McCarthy. I've got Bob McIntosh. I have, Bill Walsh, also from Dell. So I've got some great guests coming up. I hope you choose to join us each Tuesday at noon Eastern. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and X. We repurpose these live streams as a podcast, and you can find those under Inner Circle Podcast by David Noor, wherever you consume podcasts. Thanks for joining us. I hope this was useful to you. As also a friendly reminder, forum.avneer.com is our private online community. We've got an Inner Circle group on the left-hand side. You can join. Show notes, tips, techniques, unique content, resources, and events are always shared in the forum. Thanks, everybody. Make it a great week, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.